What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Cjthecheesedj here, and we're back with another top 6 video. And today we're taking a look at top 6 PvP dinos you need to use with you when you plan on doing some PvP. So this is from my personal experience PvPing. Now, before I started YouTube and doing all the ARC videos, I was a heavy PvPer on the computers. Nowadays, I don't PvP as much, as you guys can probably tell. But let's get into it. So today, we're kicking this list off at number 6 and working our way down to number 1. So at number 6, we have the Microraptor. Now, this guy is pivotal for any PvP battles because he essentially sits on your shoulder and he just sits there looking pretty. No, I'm only joking. You can essentially throw this guy and he'll actually knock any players off their mounts that he comes across. Now, if you set them to aggressive as well, they will then also attack the target that you wish for them to attack. Or you can just, whistle attack target. Now, these guys are the fastest creatures in all of ARC. The fastest, regardless out of all the other creatures, they are the fastest creature in all of ARC. You'll see here that this guy runs like a bullet. You watch him attack, you can see how fast he is. That is how fast they are. Microraptors are the fastest dinosaurs creatures in the whole entirety of the game, and he's just disappeared on us, so make sure you've got them set to follow, otherwise they will disappear. But you can pretty much lob them off your shoulder and they will target the players on mounts, knocking them off their mounts and stunning them. If you've ever come across them in the wild, they do the exact same effect on players. Now, the only downside to this is that they can't actually knock off higher up mounts, so like Spinos and Rexes, the Microraptors have a little bit of a problem knocking them off those mounts. But other than that, these guys are great mounts because they can knock the players off, stunning them, which will allow you to get a quick hit in and even kill the player if so need be. Now, if the player kills you and these guys are still set to attacking them, they will hunt them down. And these guys are pretty powerful. They do have decent stats. You can see this guy's a level 100. He's got about 500 health and 245 melee damage. So he does hit pretty decently and he does hit pretty hard. So take that into consideration when you plan on raiding. Now, if you're bringing Gigantopithecus, the gigantic apes, with you as well, you can have one of them sit on their shoulders and you can essentially bring 2 of them with you. Now, the Gigantopithecus can also launch these guys and throw them at the target, also causing them to dismount, which then gives you the chance to use your Gigantopithecus to finish the job and kill the player. And that's why these guys are number 6 on this list. Now, at number 5, it was a bit of a dilemma. Number 5, we've got the Steger and the Trike. Now, this all comes down to your personal preference. I personally prefer to use the Trike, but many people like to use the Steger. So, the Steger and Trike are in at number 5 of PvP dinos you need to tame because of their turret-soaking abilities. Now, each of these dinos actually reduces the amount of damage turrets do to players. So essentially, the Steger protects you with its spines on its back. You just have to make sure you're facing sideways, otherwise you will get shot. Now, the difference between the Steger and the Trike is that the Trike's faceplate also protects you from turrets. However, the turrets have to be straight ahead of you. So you have to be hitting it front on with your Trike. However, the damage reduction on the Trike and the turrets is monumental. Like, it is a huge amount of difference in comparison to the Steger. We have actually done a video previously on it. If you haven't checked it out, be sure to check it out. The results will actually amaze you. Like, I was so surprised when I saw that. So it all comes down to personal preference and what you would like to use to soak up turrets. Obviously, the difference between them is that they have quite a bit of difference in health. 1200 health on the Trike, whereas the Steger has about just shy of 30,000 health. So it's a big difference when it comes to stat-wise. But like I said, the Trike actually reduces the amount of turret damage by a huge amount because the Steger has recently taken a nerf in terms of soaking turrets, so it is now less reliable, in my opinion, than the Trike. So it all comes down to personal preference, but these guys are going to be your main source of soaking up turrets, as the bullets won't actually be able to hit the player as if they're set to target players, because the spines of the Steger will protect you, whereas the faceplate of the Trike will protect you from the bullets. So it all comes down to personal preference and what you'd like to use instead of the other. Now, as well as that, in PvP against other players, these guys do have a knockback attack. Both of them have a knockback attack. The Steger's is slightly more than the Trike's. However, the Trike is front on, whereas the Steger, you have to kind of hit from the side, as he's got his tail swing, so obviously he's going to hit from either side, whereas the Steger swings from the front. So like I said, it's all personal preference. The Trike only knocks back if they're attacking from the front and a small 180 radius. So personal preference for these guys. In at number 4 is one of the fastest flyers in the game, the Pteranodon. The Pteranodon is number 4 on this list because of his easiness to tame and because he's one of the fastest flyers in all of Ark. Obviously the Griffin and the Wyverns are faster than the Pteranodon, however the Pteranodon is still fast and he still has the ability to pick enemy players off their mounts, which makes this guy a great tame for PvPing. As well as that, he also has the barrel roll, which essentially allows you to damage players atop their mounts, which is also a great way to minimize the amount of damage they will do to you and maximize the amount of damage that you do to them. However, like I said, comes down to personal preference. What island you're on also plays a big role. Obviously, if you're on the island, you're not going to have access to Griffins or Wyverns if cross-server is not enabled. However, on Ragnarok and, Scorched Earth and whatnot, you do have access to Wyverns and the Griffins. So it all comes down to you. I personally would use the Pteranodon over the Wyvern because of its picking ability, and it's small and you can easily hide it, behind rocks, behind trees. The Wyverns and the Griffins, they kind of stick out like a sore thumb. As well as that, you can barrel roll into the Plant Species X base turrets. So, the foundations, you can actually barrel roll into those, damaging them. And your Pteranodon can actually tank the Plant Species X seeds for you while you blow into the base. So it's a great way to get around and, maneuver yourself around the battlefield and maneuver yourself around their base. As well as that, if you manage to bring a Pteranodon along with you in the raid and you manage to get into the base and blow through a hole in their wall, you can easily bring your Pteranodon in with a barrel roll plan, providing it has enough stamina to do so. You can then actually bring the Pteranodon in and it makes ferrying stuff outside of the base a lot easier for you. That's why the Pteranodon is number 4 on this list. Coming in at number 3 is the Therizinosaurus. Now this guy is a great mount for PvP just because of his pure damage that he's able to dish out. These guys hit just as hard as Rexes, so they're a great addition to any tribe that plans on PvPing, and they just deal a great amount of damage. Now one extra thing that they do as well to players is they actually shred through armor. Their primary attack shreds through armor. As well as that, they're also able to knock players off lower leveled mounts. Not lower leveled mounts, sorry. Lower tiered mounts, I guess you could say. So mounts that are closer to the ground, such as, your Sabertooths, your Direwolves and whatnot. The Therizinosaurus actually does torpor damage to players, damaging them. You can see here we're hitting 99 on this Diplodocus, which is a pretty solid amount of damage. Now, as well as that, the Therizinosauruses have quite a bit of health to themselves. This guy is a level 100. He hasn't been leveled up once yet, and he has 3,000 health. So it's a great way to deal damage to your enemy players and a great way to shred their armor. If you've got players running around wearing flak and, riot gear even, you can easily run around with your Therizinosaurus, shredding their armor, making it easier for your tribe mates to kill them with other dinos or your Therizino itself. It's a great way to take out enemy players and knock them off their mounts and prevent them from giving you a counter strike and just, dealing a solid amount of damage to anything in its path. They're also great at taking out enemy dinos for the particular reasons that I said. Their high melee damage, their decent amount of health really helps in that situation. That's why these guys are number 3 on the list. At number 2, you have the Paraceratherium. Now this guy is great for raiding in Ark because he has the platform saddle. You can whack a platform saddle on him, whack yourself in a metal box like you can see here that we have ourselves in currently, and potentially protect yourself from any of the turrets in the near vicinity that are set to players only. Now, the good thing about this is that if they are set to players only, they will actually shoot your box. Not your Paraceratherium or anything, just the box, and since you are located directly in metal, you won't actually get shot. It's a great way to survive turrets in PvP, and as well as that, it's a great way to deal with enemy dinos. Because the Paraceratherium has such a large hit range, he can deal a crap ton of damage, and you can see he almost does the amount of damage that a Therizino will do to dinos. You can see that he hit 88 on whatever we're hitting, and he does a huge knockback on things as well. Now, as well as that, he also has a lot of health, more health than the Therizinosaurus, and if bred correctly and, eventually tamed properly and whatnot, they have a great amount of health for themselves, a great amount of weight for themselves, and a great amount of melee damage for themselves, which allows them to tank a lot of damage from A, enemy dinos, B, turrets, and protect you from any potential turret threats that are in the vicinity. And I'm probably going to lose him here unless we land in the water. As well as that, they're also relatively decent swimmers, so you can obviously take them into water and lakes and whatnot, even take them underwater, with you, which is a great way to, you know, obviously if you're going to go for an underwater base, you won't be taking yourself a Paraceratherium, but if you do need to cross, you know, little lakes and whatnot, you yourself are actually protected from oxygen. You can see here, we are completely submerged. Although maybe because we have creative mode enabled, I'm not 100% sure on that. But even so, the Paraceratherium does have a decent swim speed underwater. So do take that into mind when you plan on bringing these guys to raids. And like I said, they just hit hard. They have a ton of health. They can tank. And if you get a decent platform saddle for these guys, the amount of damage reduction they take is monumental. It's a great way to raid, and you know, you're protected as a player inside the box. And you can easily get out, you know, maneuver yourself around the box, and boom, you're set. You can put turrets on the back of these guys if... Actually, no, you can't. On your custom server, you can do that. On officials, you can't. But, you know, you can see here, you're in your box, you're nice and safe. You don't need to worry about anything. The only downside to this is that you obviously have to come outside to be able to ride him again and get in that little safe vicinity that you have for yourself. That is why the Paraceratherium is number 2 on this list. Now, some honourable mentions that we are going to throw in there are the Basilisk and the Rock Drake, as well as the Karkanos. Like I said earlier, these guys weren't included on this list because, you know, they're aberration creatures. They make up one map, whereas these creatures that I've put on this list make up 3 of them. So, you know, take that into consideration before you get salty at me. But as well as those creatures, you could easily sub out the Rex for the Spino, although I would put the Spino further up on this list if you are going for a base out on an island. Spinos do just hit as well as Rexes, however they don't have the added ability of the Roar. They do have an increased attack speed but lower melee damage, and as well as that, the Dire Bear. I honestly think the Dire Bear is a great creature to PvP with, as well because of its increased abilities, such as the sprint speed and the damage. Now, one final creature that deserves to be on the honourable mentions is the Gigantopithecus, the gigantic ape. These guys will be your foot soldiers. You can chuck really good helmets on them, Mastercraft flak helmets, ramshackle helmets, and that gives them a huge amount of armor. Now, as well as that, they also shred through player armor as well, much like the Therizinosaurus. They were very close to be on this list, however we decided to exclude them and just give them an honourable mention, but definitely do not discount these guys when it comes to PvP. They are amazing. You can easily lob yourself over player wars and whatnot with their throw ability. You can bring yourself extra shoulder-mounted creatures such as Pegomastixes, Microraptors to knock players off mounts. So it's a great way to bring extra dinos to the battle, and one of the better dinos. And finally, number 1 is hands down still the king of Ark, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. This guy is the king of PvP, honestly. You've got other dinos, obviously you've got the Basilisk, you've got the Rock Drake and whatnot, which, you know, we've kind of excluded from this list as they are on Aberration, and they only make up 1 map, whereas all these dinos we have put on this list make up the other 3 maps. So Aberration creatures have been excluded from this list, but the Rex, you know, honestly, he's easy to tame, easy to breed. You know, you've got the Gigas and whatnot, but, you know, you can still deal decent amount of damage with Rexes to Gigas. You know, you get an army of Rexes for yourself, you can easily take on a Giga that is tamed. So take that into consideration, but these guys just have the immense power behind them. They also have their new Roar that they received in the TLC pass, which you can see is right there, and that essentially causes you to poop lock dinos that are in front of you, and, you know, makes them shit themselves. Literally, it makes them poop themselves. So you've got that ability as well, which can provide your teammates a chance to inflict extra damage on any dinos or players in the near vicinity, and essentially it could allow you to kill them if you're able to, you know, stun them for a short enough duration, wait a bit, get your next Roar off, hit them again. So it gives you an opportunity to deal a lot of damage to enemy players and mounts. As well as that, he's just got a huge amount of health and a huge amount of melee damage backing him. This guy is only a level 100, but you tame yourself up a wild level 150, and you can easily have yourself an army of Rexes that are capable of taking on the bosses, for example. You know, what other dinos do you really use to take on the bosses? Rexes. So I would definitely recommend getting yourself a Rex, and the Rex is number 1 on this list for those particular reasons. Alrighty guys, that'll conclude today's video. Let me know what you thought of it down below. Let me know if you'd like to see any other top 5 videos. But other than that, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Got this soda,